Does it ever feel like your job swallows every ounce of energy, leaving your side projects and passions on the back burner? Well, if so, you're not alone. But the truth is, if you don't figure out how to carve out time for those ideas now, months or maybe even years could slip away. And that dream business, creative project, future freedom, it never gets off the ground. But imagine the opposite, where you finish work with a simple but effective system that allows you to make actual steady progress on your side projects and finally see your ideas and maybe even your dreams come to life. Well, that system is exactly what I'm going to show you in this video. Step one is to do a time audit, and there's different ways we can do this, but I think you can do this really quite logically and in quite a simple way. And so what I do is firstly just think to yourself, all right, you've got 24 hours every day, 7 days a week. That means we have 168 hours to basically do all of the things that we need to. And from there, I would then just start working backwards by subtracting all of the things that we need to do in our life to ultimately then come up with a number of hours that is going to be left that we can, if we want to, use to focus on our side projects. So to start with, I would think about some of the obvious things. So that's going to be like sleep. That's going to be something that everyone's going to be doing. So that would be like 6, 7, 8, 9 hours every day, depending on how much sleep you like to do. Work for most people, I imagine, will probably be one of the other big ones. So that could be, anywhere from 8 to 12 plus hours every day. And I would also include any commute time that you have in there, because that's probably not going to be time that you're going to be able to work on side projects or do anything that productive. And then anything else that is kind of like a real non-negotiable for you in your life. So for me, like exercise would fall into that category. Exercise is a massive passion for me, and I like to do at least like an hour or more of exercise every day. So I think about those things and then start subtracting from that 168 hours. And from there, we should then just keep going with all of the other things that we need to do. And I would really try to get as granular with this and include basically as much as possible here. And I think when we're thinking about it at this stage, we should do it from the perspective of basically just trying to include all of the things that in an ideal world we would do. So if you're someone that loves watching like 2 hours of telly, include that here. Or if you just like spending a lot of time with friends and family, include a certain amount of time for that. But basically just really think about all of those things that you think you want to do and subtract all of those things from that initial 168 hours. And then once we've done all that and we've worked through all of those things, that will ultimately leave us with a certain amount of hours. And so if we come to the end and we see we've got like 20 hours, then we should know that in reality, we have around 20 hours to actually, if we want to, work on the side projects of our choosing. And I think the final bit here, once you have done that and come up with an initial number, I'd maybe just for 1 week, try to like track it as best as possible, just to make sure if what you have actually come up with is an accurate representation of your life and those number of hours that you have left is in reality the amount that you probably do have. Step 2 is to get clear on your side projects. And I think in this like hustle type culture that we live in these days, you're almost made to feel like maybe you should have a side project, or it's almost like a cool thing to be doing, but that definitely isn't the reality for everyone. But if you are someone that has decided that they think they do want to be working on a side project, I think you need to have it as not this like just like airy fairy kind of something that you want to be doing. I think you need to get very clear on what it is that you want to do. And so I think you need to ask yourself, like, what is it that I want to do? Why exactly do I want to be doing this thing? Do I think it's going to bring me joy or like bring something into my life? Is it going to be a good use of my time? And I think why it's so important to think about those things and get very clear on what it is that you want to be doing is because if you're not, it's actually going to be so much more harder for you to implement the action steps towards that thing, and you're probably going to be more likely to ultimately not implement those things and probably at some point just give up on the thing. So it's important before you even get going to get clear on what the thing is. And then once you've gone through those questions and hopefully have confirmed at a high level that the side project is something that you want to do, then you need to really think more about what are the actions that you need to be doing on a consistent basis to be able to achieve that ultimate side project quest. And once you've done that and got a little bit clear on what all of those actions are, you can then think to yourself, okay, how much time each week do I need to do all of those things? So if you take the example from my own life, like this YouTube channel is my big side project. And so at first I just had to think about like, what are the things that go into making YouTube videos and having a YouTube channel? And so that was kind of understanding more about like video setup and researching and coming up with topic ideas and then scripting videos and editing and coming up with your packaging, your titles and the thumbnails, all of that. And then once I was kind of clear on everything that I needed to do, I thought to myself, I probably need about 10 hours at least each week to be able to consistently make YouTube videos. And so then I had a real clear understanding of how much time was needed to achieve my side project. And then once you've done that and got clear on the action steps and how much time is going to be needed to do all of those things, you then go back to step one and you compare with how much time you had in step one. So for me, if I came up with needing 10 hours to do YouTube and in step one, I had like 25 hours spare each week, well then I'm kind of good to go and I know that I have enough time and I really now just need to implement the actions. However, if I went back to step one and I only had like 8 hours free, well then I've realized that I don't actually have enough time, and so I need to then think to myself, okay, is 8 hours actually enough to do what I need to with my YouTube channel? Or I'll need to go back to step one and think, all right, actually, I need to cut out some things from my life. Like maybe if I was allocating an hour every day to just watch television, maybe that's something that I can't really do. And so I need to take out that hour of television and implement it more into my step two action of things that I want to do. And then once you've really figured out what actions you need to take and how much time is needed, and hopefully you've confirmed that you do have enough time, you then move on to step three, which is to implement the necessary actions that you need to take to achieve your side project. And there's a few things that I think you can do to try to implement things as effectively as possible. So the first thing I think is to try to schedule your actions around times that are going to work best for you. So for instance, if you are someone that really works best in the morning, if you can, maybe try to prioritize like some of the most difficult tasks that you're going to need to do in the morning so that you can tackle them more effectively and more efficiently. Another thing I'd say here just around scheduling is that I think you do need to try and get comfortable with using the weekends. And if you are working full time, you are going to have a limited amount of time in the week. And when you get to the weekend, maybe initially you do just think that's time that you just want to relax and kind of switch off from doing anything that's particularly productive. But really, weekends is where you're going to have the most amount of time, probably the most amount of energy, and really is where you can tackle your side projects probably most effectively. And it's not to say that you need to be working all weekend and can't have any sort of life in any way, but just try to utilize that time at the weekend as best as possible. And I think you'd be amazed like how much you could get done by just utilizing like a Saturday morning, for instance. And like Saturday morning is the time that I really try to target to make progress on my side projects. The second thing I'd say here is to try and just prioritize all of the healthy habits that you probably already know about. But that means prioritizing sleep, exercise, trying to eat healthy, staying hydrated, trying to minimize stress levels. And I say that because why we want to do those things is to just try and have sort of as much natural energy as possible and just to kind of feel as productive and positive as possible, because if we do that, then we're going to be more naturally inclined to want to work on our side projects, and we'll probably actually be able to get through things more efficiently and more productively, and then maybe actually have a little bit more time left over to kind of just relax and do some of those other things that we might want to do. And then the final thing I'd say here is just having a bit of a mindset shift, or just kind of like a mindset perspective, which is that doing a side project around a full-time job, it is going to be hard because your full-time job most likely is going to be time consuming and it's going to be energy consuming. So you're not always going to feel like overly motivated and feeling good to work on that side project. Like say if it is in the evenings or even as we just said at the weekends, like you're not always going to have that sense of like urgency to want to do those things. But I think what we need to just think here is that from step two, we will have identified that this side project, it really is something that we want to be doing in our life. And we have thought about it and prioritized it as something that is important to us. And so I try to just always keep that in the front of mind. And on those days maybe where you're not really feeling that motivation, or maybe just feeling a bit tired and like you don't really want to progress your side project, just try to remind yourself that no, this is important. And ultimately, I guarantee that if you do continue to work on it and take the action steps, you're probably going to feel a lot better for doing it. And then of course, who knows where that side project may take you. So there you go. Follow those steps to hopefully have more time to conquer your side projects and bring your dreams to life. I hope you found that useful. Thanks very much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.